This is the Kalphite Queen, and today I am going to show you how to kill her. There are no real requirements for killing the Kalphite Queen. The only thing I would suggest is having your melee stats 70 plus. However, if you're not that, you still want to do it, it is doable. Here's an example of my gear setup for Kalphite Queen. You basically want your best in slot strength gear such as bandos, but if you don't have bandos, that's fine. Just replace it with your next best in slot items. I will say though that having a Slayer task for Kalphite Queen is massive, as the DPS bonus from the helm will make it a lot easier. Also as well, not necessary, but having the blue gem from Tombs of a Mascot on your Keras will make your DPS a lot better. Along with this, you probably want to bring a defense lower and spec weapon such as the Bandos Godsword or the Dragon Warhammer. Now that you have your gear set up and your inventory set up done, next up we have how to kill the Kalphite Queen. The first thing you need to know is the Kalphite Queen has two phases, a melee phase and a ranged phase. Throughout both of these phases, she'll be able to attack you with all styles. The first phase is the melee phase. In this phase, you'll be meleeing her with your Keras on the crush option. It is recommended to play mage here in this phase, as it usually hits the hardest, and during this, it is also possible to flinch her, so you take no damage and waste no prayer. However, it can be a little annoying to set up, but it'll be worth it once you do, and I'll show an example of this flinching method at the end. The second phase is a range phase. This phase you want to equip your range gear and attack her. During this phase you want to play ranged also. It is possible to melee this phase if you want, however the DPS will be a lot slower. The reason this works is Kalphite Queen's overhead prayers aren't actual true overheads. It just means she's particularly tanky against that attack style. So if you prefer DPS, you can either range her in this phase, but if you don't want to take any damage or use any prayer, you can also flinch her as well. It's up to you. Now that you have your gear and your inventory setup done, you understand the phases of the Kalphite Queen, you need to know how to get there. The easiest way to get there is by using the fairy ring code BIQ and running west. If this is your first time, you'll need two ropes to enter. One to enter the Kalphite lair and the other to enter the Kalphite Queen chamber. The one thing I would say is, before you do head off, I would recommend pre-potting a super combat, an antidote and a stamina pot, and then replacing those slots in your inventory with extra food. And just one last thing before I show you an example kill. If you have access to Vengeance or Thralls, I would highly recommend bringing them, as they'll help your DPS a lot. Alright, so the one thing I will say is, just before we start the Kalphite Queen, if you ever need to eat, make sure you walk underneath her. If you're not doing the flinching method, or even if you are doing the flinching method, make sure you walk underneath her. For this kill, I'm just going to be showing you basically how to tank. I don't really bother with the flinching method, however, if that's something that you want to learn, I will link a fantastic guide to it down below. Obviously, if we get her into a point where we can flinch, then it's entirely different, then I will, but I'm not going to go too out of my way to try and do so. So yeah, once you're here, you just run up and attack her. You want to stick on Pray for Mage and Piety. Also, as well, at this point, I kind of wait for my, wait till I have space in my inventory. Oops, I did not mean to draw that. I wait till I have space in my inventory, and then I get the BGS. And then I just try and walk underneath her as much as I can, basically. You can kind of do the kills like this if you want. The only thing I will say is, as I said, make sure you try and walk underneath her whenever you get the chance. But whenever I'm full HP, I don't really mind tanking anyway. Just remember to use Venge whenever you can. Also walk underneath her whenever you need to eat. So you see with these wee Kalphites here? She's kind of being walked into the corner, so what I'm going to do is kind of stay underneath her and push her that direction. Which means she'll be set up to flinch if this Kalphite had have actually walked around there. But there we go, that should be us. And now she is going to walk into this corner. So yeah, as I said, this is pretty much it. Anytime you want to attack, you walk out, hit her, and then walk back underneath. Wait for her HP bar to disappear, and repeat. Just as she changes here, if you do already have her in the flinching position, you can flinch with melee at this phase. As I said in the previous section, her overheads aren't actual true overheads, so you can just melee through this phase if you want. You won't take any damage, however, range is a lot more effective against her. Just make sure you're praying range. And then walk back underneath whenever you need to eat. Also, a little trick here as well is you can use shift click, so you can click on her, hold shift, and then click back underneath if you're playing on the RuneLite client. Yeah, I think I'm just going to range this out. And there we go. That is pretty much it. Sometimes it can seem a little bit more complicated than what it is, but it's actually not that difficult, and once you get a few kills going, you'll completely understand what to do. that is our simple guide on how to do the Kalphite Queen. As I said, this guide was never intended to be incredibly in-depth. It's just basically get you set up and hopefully let you understand the basics of the Kalphite Queen and hopefully allow you to get your first couple of kills going. The Kalphite Queen is really one of those bosses that just the more you do it, the more you'll understand. If you have any further questions about it and you want to ask, feel free to drop them below. And here is the drop table for the Kalphite Queen as well. Hopefully you learned something from this guide. If you did, feel free to drop a sub, helps out a ton, and I'll see you guys in the next one.